All right, welcome everybody to the Good in the Head podcast. My name is Pete Jones and I am Good in the Head. I have on the show today Krisha Stevenson. Um, she's someone that I met through my cousin months and months ago, and I've just been really enjoying watching her life unfold as she continues to manifest majestically. I'll just
Mhm.
put it that way. Welcome to the show, Krisha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Um, What I would like to start with is a basic background, life history, and what you've experienced in your life that has sort of shot you on this trajectory and the life you're living now.
Yeah, definitely. So, I grew up in northern Utah. I have five older siblings, and then it was me and my sister that's just 11 months younger than me. And the five older siblings were quite a bit older than us. So we weren't, way close, but, they were always there. And then I had my mom and dad, they've always been married. They're still married. And, I never experienced I had a happy childhood. I didn't experience any hardship. I didn't have like a whole bunch of trauma. I remember being a really happy kid, but I was raised in the LDS church and being from Utah, that's kind of what everyone in the area did. But I remember as a kid being so confused. I would go to church and I'd be being taught these things and I remember sitting there thinking like this feels really scripted. It never just felt right to me. I remember being like really little, like 7, 8 years old, and being like, this doesn't feel exactly right to me, and I kept getting taken to church all the time and being taught like, there's Satan that's trying to like put all this evil out there that's trying to like pull you down. There's like God, there's this whole like plan of salvation, and none of it was really ever feeling right to me, And so I was always like, thought something was wrong with me because I was like, everyone around here seems to be like really into this. And it never clicked for me ever. And, so I grew up, kept trying to like figure it out, make it work. And then I remember as a teenager, I had really low self-esteem. I developed diabetes at the age of 8, type 1. And so I, you know, was trying to deal with that, and I just felt like there was always something wrong with me. Like I was really a closed off kid. I was shy. I didn't really talk a lot. And it felt like everyone else around me was just so okay just being themselves, and I didn't feel that way. And so as a teenager, I just felt really disconnected from who I was and what's the whole point of everything. And I kind of just felt lost, and so I got married and we started having kids. I had my first kid before I was married, and then we got married. We had two other babies, so I have three sweet babies. And I was in pure for survival mode. I was just trying to figure life out, trying to be happy, trying to make it work. We were still going to church, trying to like do this thing. And I just didn't ever feel like fully connected to myself. I never felt like I knew who I truly was. Um, and so it brought me a lot of sadness because I was just like, is this all life is? Like just trying to like make it work, get a job, like go to church, like have a family. Is this like all it is? I always kind of had those questions of like, what's the point? And um I it was in 2019, and my older brother, he was like, I thought he had everything right. He was like, had a great body. I had gained a lot of weight as a teenager. And so from my diabetes. And so he had like a great body. He was so fit. He had a wife and three kids. He had a great job. He seemed so happy. And I just thought like the world of him. And in 2019, he committed suicide. And he lived right around the corner from me. And so I just remember like being there that day, before they even took his body away and everything. And I was just like, what is happening? And so I remember feeling like, if I'm at this place and I thought he was like so much happier than me, like what chance do I have? And so kind of that day I was like, I need to figure out who I am, and I need to learn to actually like love who I am. So it sent me on a full on mission. Like that moment changed the whole world for me. And my family's grieving, and I'm trying to just like, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. And so the first thing that I started with, was my body, my health. I hired some personal trainers to help me and teach me about like working out and how to lift weights and how to eat healthy and like all these things. And so I started this program, and I started like really working on myself, my fitness, my health. I started losing a lot of weight. I kept going and going, and then I was like, you know what, this is it. Like I'm going to help other people, because I started feeling like confidence, for the first time in my life. I was like, I'm actually like steering the ship. I am going to like help other people to feel this way. So I became a personal trainer. I coached women online, and that brought me so much happiness, just helping people. And there was a part of me that really, really started to love like personal development. And I started reading so many books and listening to podcasts and YouTube videos and just trying to learn as much as I could. And so once that happened, and I was really focusing on my body, and then I started focusing on my mind, I started recognizing how many things around me I did just because I was born into it. And I thought it was normal. Like I was from a very small town where many people don't leave. You grow up there, everyone knows each other's families. Like that's just kind of how it was. And I just started looking around, and I was like, well, if I stay here, I kind of see what my life will be, you know, just like every person around me, like you kind of just stay here and have your family and live and die. And I was like, you know what? I want to experience what life actually is like. And so me and my husband, we decided, I always told him, I'm never leaving, I'm never moving away. But once I started really like diving into myself, I was like, I started feeling a lot of courage. And I was like, I think we need to move away. And so we kind of just threw out all these different states that we'd want to move to. And we looked at the ones that me and him overlapped on. One of them was North Carolina, and I was like, that one feels right. Let's fly out there. So me and him flew out there. We drove the entire state in a week. And I was like, I kind of need to feel the energy of like different areas. And so we got to this one little area on the coast, and I was like, this is it. And so we packed up our family and we moved there. And my husband found a job, and we just kind of went for it, and we always joke that that's when our lives truly started, because we had to really spread our wings and learn how to rely on each other and be in the world without leaning on like family and friends and all these things. And I kept coaching and learning more about myself. I didn't do a lot of like meditation or things like that, but I would just read a lot. And so we kind of did that for a couple of years, and then we're like, okay, now it feels time to move back to Utah. But we don't want to go back to the small town, so we settled in southern Utah in St. George. And once we got there, I was coaching for a little bit. I competed in a bodybuilding competition, like all these things. I felt like I had really pushed the limits on like health and like mindset. But I was like, something feels like it's missing. Like I haven't dove into something, and then I got it like intuitively. I started to really build a connection with my intuition. And when things felt right, I knew it. And so I learned to really, really follow it, even if it didn't quite make sense. And it just felt so right to me that it was like, it's time for you to dive in to your spirit, like your spiritual side. And I didn't know exactly what that would look like. And so I just kind of went all in. I listened to a podcast from Aubrey Marcus, and he was talking about plant medicine. And he was like, well, if you are ready for that kind of experience, put it out into the universe and the experience will come to you. And I was like, what? Like, there's no way that's how it works. That's not how it's going to happen. But I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I sat down one day and I like really meditated and I was like, I am ready for this experience. I'm ready to really meet myself on a soul level. I'm ready to heal like the things about me that I feel like I haven't been able to heal before. And so I just put it out there. And I just had faith that something was going to happen.
Did you
And
put it out there
so
verbally or write it down mentally? How did you put it out
it
there?
was both. I remember I wrote it out. I journal a lot. And so I have a lot of notebooks just around my house of like all my thoughts, feelings, experiences, everything.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I remember I wrote it out one day. I feel like I am ready to go on a plant medicine journey. I didn't know what that would look like, what it would feel like. There's so many different kinds. I didn't really know. So I remember saying out loud, I was sitting on my front porch and I remember I would get up every single morning and watch the sunrise. And that's when I really started meditating and really like, feeling energy and really like connecting with myself. And I said out loud, like, I am ready for this experience. Please bring the one to me that I need. And so I had a friend that messaged me and she was like, oh, I'm going on this hike. It's a little breathwork session in a cave. Do you want to go with me? And so I was like, I don't know what breathwork is. I don't know any of these people, but sure, I'll go. I'll tag along. And so I went and I connected with a lot of beautiful women that went there. We all kind of like exchanged social medias and things like that, started following each other. And I was sitting in my car at the gym one day, and I remember I got a message, and it was your sweet cousin Mandy, and she messaged me and said, "Are you ready? Hey, have you ever done plant medicine before?" And I was like,
Ding, ding,
weird
ding.
that I put this out there. And I was like, "No, I haven't." And she goes, "Well, I facilitate and I help with people's healing in these kind of environments. And I would love if you would come and do a sit with me because I really feel called to talking to you about it." And I remember at the end of it, she said, "Let's heal humanity together." And I was like, okay, was that just a coincidence? Like I put it out there and then it literally just came to me like, what the heck? So I was like, okay, I'm going to trust it. And so I went with it and I went out and I had a beautiful, beautiful journey with psilocybin, and it was life changing. I went in and I was able to meet my ego, have a talk with it, have a full conversation, why it showed up all over in my life, like what it was there for, like just so many different things like that. It really started helping me heal things that I felt like I didn't know how to heal on my own, you know? And so I did that and then I finished it, went home, and then a few months later, I remember because we did a very low dose that time. The next time she was like, okay, do you feel like you are ready for your hero's journey, which is a bigger dose? And so I was like, yeah, I do. And at the time, me and my husband were really, really, really struggling financially. We were barely able to pay our bills. A lot of our money was going to just paying rent, and we were like barely able to afford groceries. Like we were struggling, and I was in this just stress state all the time about like finances and money and like what, like this is stupid. Like this is just like paper that the government prints out, but like I feel like I am crumbling because of it. And so I went out on my first hero journey and it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Like I started seeing like flower of life everywhere and like all these things. And then I felt like I went outside and I sat down and I remember I had a talk with God. And I was like, okay, I need you to teach me what abundance truly is. And so, and I just felt it like to my core, like, okay, I'll show you. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go all in and like keep going, you know? And I would listen to a lot of videos about like law of attraction and things like that, but I didn't fully understand it. You know, people would talk about frequency and emotions and like how you can attract anything, but I didn't feel like I had ever experienced it, you know? And so I went home and I was like, okay, when people talk about abundance, they're always talking about money, almost always, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, abundance actually means the constant flow of everything, like anything,
Hmm.
something always happening, and you're not worried that it's going to stop, right? I
Sure.
was like, that's what the definition of abundance truly is. And so I would sit out on my porch every single day as the sun was coming up, and I would just be like, okay, how am I seeing abundance in my life right now? And I was like sitting there and I would write it all out. Well, I'm seeing the sunrise every single day. And I never have a fear that it's not going to come up. That is abundance. And so I would just sit there and I would feel that energy of like, it's always coming up. It's always coming up. Like that sun always shines, you know? And then I would look at like the earth and be like, there are plants that grow every single spring. No one has to do anything. They just pop up. They just grow. They just bloom. That is abundance, you know? And so I really started to recognize like the little things in my life every single day that had nothing to do with finances, nothing to do with money or like what we're getting, but just like the world around me and what was abundant, you know? And so I really focused on just sitting still and feeling that energy, like within my whole body every single day, like, and the peace that it gave, you know? And I was like, yeah, we're struggling with money right now, but look at how much abundance is around me. And so I really dove into that. And one thing that I really realized was that you can't attract anything that feels uncomfortable. And so a lot of times people are like, okay, I want to make $1 million, but also at the same time have a belief that money is the root of all evil. Money, people with money are super greedy. They only care about physical things. They're shallow, like all these things, right? And so I really recognized that I was trying to do one thing while having these beliefs over here that completely contradicted it. And so I started to really look at my beliefs. And so I'd write this out like, why do I have this belief? Okay, where did it come from? It started when I was small. People would say this, or I would go here, and things would other people would say this. And so I started realizing that a lot of the beliefs I held weren't even mine. You know,
Exactly. Yeah, I do know.
they
Wow.
were just from family. They were just from the people around me, from society, from what we'd like see on TV, anything. And so I really started to break down every single belief system. I would write it out. Does this actually serve me? Where did I learn this? Is this 100% true? You know, and I really recognized like where I was getting stuck. And then I was able to write out a new belief system. Like, if I am able to make a lot of money, that is how I am able to better serve the world, rather than if I have a lot of money, I'm shallow and greedy and only care about myself, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And so I would just take one belief, completely break it down, and form another one. And that is one thing that helped me more than anything. I just really started looking at not only my beliefs, but then like the beliefs of my husband, the belief of the people around me, the words that people would say to me, and I really just got very conscious of the way people project
Mhm.
their beliefs onto you. And so that is one of the things that really helped me more than anything.
Same here. For all the listeners, I really resonate with what she's saying right now because years ago I started on the website goodinthehead.com
Mm-hmm.
something called the Good in the Head Beliefs Project,
Mm-hmm.
where I would carry around a notebook, a little one that would fit in my pocket, and a pen. And throughout the day, I'd think about and question, like, what was I taught about money? What was I taught about spirituality? What
Yeah.
was I taught about mindset? Every single belief I could possibly jot down, I would.
Yeah.
And then I would ask myself, is this empowering or disempowering? And if it was a disempowering belief, then on the other side of the notebook, next to that disempowering belief, I would say, well, how can I sort of transform and alchemize that into something that's useful for me,
Mm-hmm.
empowering, that will help me step into being a better man, better provider, better husband, better father.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to just Google the Good in the Head Beliefs Project, that's a great starting point. But doing what Krisha's talking about is so super useful, like
Mm-hmm.
questioning every belief and then upgrading them to serve your future purposes.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just so important because, I have a lot of people message me on social media and be like, I'm really struggling with this. And a lot of times the first thing I ask them is, do you feel like you even know yourself? 100% of the time they say no. And I'm like, okay, well, that's where you need to start. You need to sit with yourself and get to know you, like on a soul level. Like, I feel like I'm at the point now, you can ask me a thing about me, a belief, a fear, a want, a desire, anything that I don't already know, that I haven't already like completely worked through, and I think that it's so important. Like, we live in this 3D matrix, that we're essentially programmed to think a certain way so that we are very controllable. And so I think it is so essential, no matter how good or bad of a childhood or life or anything that you have had, to sit down and break every single belief, anything you've been taught down, and then rebuild it from scratch, like from within, you know? And so I think that's why we have so much generational trauma, generational like belief systems, like things that just get carried and carried and carried and carried because people don't take the time to do that. So they just take whatever they've been handed and then pass it on to their children. And then, it's just a cycle. And so that's the one thing that I really started to do more than anything.
So you're breaking generational cycles. And like you said, you had a great childhood, a loving parents that are still married. And yet I've noticed that in looking backwards, many times as small children, we misperceive what well-meaning, loving, kind parents are trying to teach us by
Mm-hmm.
like having a perception about their words that make us believe a certain way about ourselves that they don't intend at all. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of our suffering comes from the beliefs about ourselves
Yeah.
that that we were programmed with subconsciously at a very young age.
Yeah.
And they talk about the mind of a child and how it's in theta mode up until the age of 6 or 7. And then it shuts off. And then, bam, you are programmed subconsciously for the rest of your life to live according to your subconscious beliefs and programming, like 95% of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, the usefulness and the idea behind going into the subconscious mind and reprogramming the subconscious has been an interesting topic to dive into for me.
Yeah.
Um, what would you recommend for people who are repeatedly living a lifestyle with beliefs and mindsets in accordance to how they were raised, and they may have just become self-aware enough to realize that they want to change.
Yeah.
How would you start?
My biggest thing would say start just spending time with yourself alone. And I think when I think when you're alone and you're really just sitting in your own company is when you start to notice a lot of things, a lot of like feelings, a lot of like ways that you believe things. So I would say to sit and just really look at your thoughts that come up during that, and then ask yourself, where is this stemming from? Is this mine, or was this handed to me somewhere? And almost always it's going to be that it was handed to you. And then you get to really start to ask yourself, okay, even though it was handed to me out of love or out of like, because I think most of the time we're handed things out of love, out of good intention, from our family. And for me, I've had to really sit with that and say, like, and have empathy and, realize people don't know what they don't know, and so my parents didn't know exactly what they were handing me. They were just doing their best. You know, my in-laws didn't know exactly what they were handing my husband. They were just doing their best. Like everyone's just going off of the level of consciousness and knowledge that they have. And so when you start to really like expand your level of consciousness, you get to have empathy for the people that didn't exactly do so, you know? And I think that's what's given me a lot of peace, because I don't feel like I've really worked through a lot of this and a lot of like my inner child work, my inner teenager. Like I would look at my teenage years and just be like, oh, that was a rough time. But now I
Great.
look at
Yeah,
it
same
with,
here.
now I look at her with just such love, because she was just trying to figure it out, And so I don't feel like I look at it with shame anymore like I used to. Now I'm just looking at it with like, I was trying to figure it out in a world that teaches you not to. And so it's okay. So
Why does the world teach us not to love and accept ourselves?
I think that we have a lot of systems here trying to keep us small, just because that way we are controllable. And so if they can, I think there are a lot of wonderful bright lights in this world, and I think there is a lot of also not great people in the world.
Yeah.
And so I think there's kind of just this war going on with our energy, with our emotions. And um I think a lot of people just really benefit off of us being small and not knowing who we are, not knowing how powerful we are, and how much we can of a creator we are. We really can create anything in the entire world. And I remember hearing that and I'd be like, yeah, okay. But
Right,
like
right, yeah.
now that I've experienced it, I'm just like, whoa. Like, and that's one thing that I had to really sit with was, oh, okay, who created me? Source. So that's the most powerful being in the entire universe, right? So if that's the case, doesn't that mean I'm pretty damn powerful? Doesn't that mean I'm pretty valuable and pretty like amazing? I would say yeah. And so I would just really sit with those feelings and like start telling myself like those beliefs and those affirmations to get them like rooted in very deeply. Like I am created from God, which means I am infinitely valuable. Therefore, I deserve to live a life of infinite value. I would tell myself that all the time. And, even when we had so much debt, no money in the account, I would just sit on my porch and I would like feel how valuable of a soul that I am, how like I was created, I am an infinite being. I am created to like be of value. And so I would really just like feel throughout my whole body that energy, just really feel it. And then I would sit and I would picture, if that's the case, what's the life that I deserve? And I would just sit and see it all in my mind. I'm a very visual person. And so I would just sit and like watch it. And I remember I would picture myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to have this home where I can completely take care of myself fully in, where I can work out, where I have like a sauna, where I have like the things that I can fully take care of myself because I don't want to keep going like out every single day to take care of myself. So I would like really picture that home, how beautiful it was. And then I would see myself going outside as the sun was rising and sit next to my pool. I was like, okay, I want to have an outside pool. And I would see myself sitting there every morning, just like feeling how valuable I am. And so every morning I would do that. I would see the whole thing in my mind. But when we are manifesting, we need to feel the emotion of what we would feel if that were happening, right? And so I would just feel that, like, how would I feel? Would I feel at peace? Would I feel home? Would I feel comfortable? Would I feel loved? Would I feel taken care of? Would I feel, and I would just like completely sit and just feel all those emotions every single day. I would just feel them. And I started to do that every day. And then my life started to shift very quickly once I started to do that. Um, I had I have a sister and a brother-in-law who have also like completely dove into, you know, learning who they are, working on themselves, doing all these things. They like have built businesses and like personal development businesses and things like that. And we're very, very successful. And so I was like, oh, I want to have a home that's similar to theirs. So a lot of times I would picture like a home that was like theirs. And I would just sit in it and like watch it. And then I realized that, um, and then I went and had a medicine sit with my sister. She was like, I'm really feeling called to this experience. Will you help me with it? I feel like there's things that I need to learn, you know? And so I came and I sat with her and we worked through a lot of her things that were holding her back and things like that. And we just started to get really, really close. And I'm over here trying to manifest this life. And then one day they call and invited us to move in with them. They have this gigantic castle of a house, and they had this entire apartment that has its own kitchen and living room and laundry room and bedrooms. They had four extra bedrooms, which is funny because we have me and my husband and then our three little kids. And they invited us to move in, and we got here, and my brother-in-law was like, I would always walk through these empty parts of my home saying, I don't know why I built this. I don't know why I built a home this big. I felt like I always needed someone here. I didn't know. I always felt like someone was going to come and be part of our family. And here you guys are. We didn't ever know that it was going to be you. And so it was funny because like I was manifesting over here a life. They were over here manifesting a family to fill their home with. And so we kind of like, once we both started listening to our intuition and doing our inner work, the manifestations kind of like lined up and gave us each other. And so it was so cool because we were talking about it, how like theirs got fulfilled at the same time as ours got fulfilled. And we got to like create this home together and this life together. And because one thing that I would always say when I was manifesting is I want people around me every day that see my value and fully recognize it and like see me for who I am, you know? And because as I was growing like through doing a lot of personal development, doing a lot of like moving and changing and shifting, a lot of relationships started to fall apart. Like
Naturally.
a lot of times when you go on the road to like finding yourself, you lose a lot of people along the way, and there was a lot of times I said, I get why people don't do it. Like, I get it. Because it's kind of scary. It's kind of hard. Like, some parts are kind of sad because there's people that you're close to that you finally realize, like, the way that my relationship with this person doesn't help me. And it doesn't feel like the energy that I want in my life. And so it's like learning to love a lot of people from afar. And so that was one thing that was kind of the harder part
Yeah, that's
of
painful.
really meeting myself, really getting to who I am, because you're going to really see who you are and recognize your value, but you're going to also understand that not everyone else is going to see that. Not everyone else is going to be like in it with you.
They're on the same
And
page, the
so,
same energy. They don't want to match that energy. They want to
yeah.
stay exactly where they're at because they're comfortable. I get that. They say your vibe attracts your tribe, but what they don't tell you is that your vibe also is unattractive to your current tribe sometimes, and it's a little
Hmm.
painful loss, and that's
Yeah.
natural and it's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I never recognized until more recently is, like the emotions that we're feeling every day, they have a frequency. They put out a frequency. And so we are just like frequent we are a frequency, like as we go out into the world. And so like attracts like. And so when I was like really struggling in my life, I had a lot of friends in my life that weren't so nice to me or weren't the greatest, or but I would just like kind of keep them there because you're someone to be there, like. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of attracting that same thing all the time. And so as I started to really learn to love myself and learn to value who I am, I found a lot of those relationships just completely falling apart, or friendships like falling apart. And I had to just look at them with respect, like we needed each other for a time. We needed each other for a time period, you know, and now we're able to both go a separate way, and that's okay,
I
you know?
love that. The wording that you put reminded me of some of my past love relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's so useful to frame it that way.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Like, hey, our soul contract's up. I love
Yep.
you and wish you well.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important, as that's happening, to not hold any like grudges or resentment or anger, or, because that's so easy to do. And so really recognizing like, I love you for what you did for me. I love that I did something for you. We fulfilled that in each other's lives, and now it's time to go. I think a lot of times, like I was taught from a young age, like kind of the relationships you have, you keep for forever. Like your friends, your family, your spouse, everything. You kind of like have a relationship, you make it work until you're done.
Like, this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I finally realized that that's not exactly how it works. We're all, you know, our own soul, our own being on our own path. And you're going to have people in your life that you need for a period of time. Some are going to last for your whole life, and some aren't. And that's okay.
And that is
So,
okay. Yeah.
yep.
Dr. Wayne Dyer said, we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are.
Hmm.
And what we are has, like you're saying, a vibrational frequency that's emitting outward and
Hmm.
attracting everything like unto it and detracting everything else. So, getting back to the vibrational frequencies and the feeling into your manifestation,
Hmm.
uh, I really want to revisit that. I'm super excited about this topic.
Yeah. So, oh, and I was kind of talking about how like I would see myself like having this life, having sitting by the pool, manifesting, and then as soon as it became comfortable. As soon as those emotions became like, oh, this is the life that like I'm meant to live, it's not something that I'm just desiring, because when we look at the frequency of emotions, desire is actually a very low frequency. Like the feeling of want or needing something is very, very low. It's like 125 hertz. And so when you're feeling that, when you're on a frequency that's that low, you're not going to be bringing a whole lot in, except more things that make you want, or more things that make you want, like feel that desire or that crave, like it's just going to show you more lack so that you have more of that emotion. And so once I realized like I am going to like love myself and who I am so fully and see like the life that I deserve, this beautiful life that I know that I deserve because I'm an extension of God, essentially,
which makes you totally worthy of anything you can imagine.
like anything out there. And that's the thing is like we all think, when we see people that do things like this, we're like, oh, it's easy to see the value in others. It's always easy to look at someone else and be like, oh, look at what you did. You're so awesome. You're so amazing. You like are so valuable. But then when we look at us, a lot of times we don't see a whole lot, you know?
So true.
And so that's the one thing that my brother just instilled in me so deeply was like, really just focus on what I feel about me. And that's it. And so I'd really dive into that. And then I found myself this summer sitting outside by a pool, looking at the mountain as the sun was rising, just meditating and journaling. And then I stopped one day and I looked around and I was like, and so I went and I pulled out my old journal that had this exact life and situation written out in it before it had happened. And I was reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, I like actually did create this, like, and that's when I really just realized how powerful of creators we are when we have these like high frequencies, when we're not down here at a level of desire, when we're up here at like enlightenment and love and authenticity and gratitude, when we're vibrating at that kind of frequency up there, you can pull anything in like so fast, you
Yeah,
know?
that story made me so emotional. I got to share one with you.
Yeah,
It's
of
a little
course.
similar, but back in 2014, I had just gotten off of all my medications. In 1999, I was told that I was bipolar, severely depressed, suicidal, anxiety ridden, and I needed pills to fix it, right? And
Yeah.
so, oh, okay, cool, I'll try pills. And so
Mm-hmm.
for 15 years, that's what I did. And it was quite a journey. And I was
Yeah.
suicidal for 15 years. And it never helped.
Mm-hmm.
But what did help is when I got off of them, altered my diet, got rid of the inflammation in my body, got my mind back, and became addicted to personal development. So 2014, I started listening to Tony Robbins, first guy I came across that centered around personal development. He
Mm-hmm.
says, well, write a list of everything you want, in your future. And so I did. And I wrote it and I'd read through it every day for about a month. And then I forgot about it and it got put away in a pile of papers. Well, fast forward about 3 years. I'm now with Carla, who I'm married to now, and
Yep.
we were moving from a home that we had rented together for a year into where we live now. And she was packing and looked in this drawer and said, "Oh, is this today's gratitude list?" And I was like, "Let me see that." And it was that piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
and everything on there, including where I'm working, owning a home, being in a solid, loving, kind, accepting sort of relationship. I mean, everything I had written down that I wanted, it was on that, and I was blown away.
Yeah.
So I second it. It works. Try it out. And once you've had that list manifest into your virtual reality we call life, then see what else you can manifest and what else and what else and who can you
Exactly.
help and where can you share it all? It's so
Yeah.
exciting. It really
Yeah.
is. I love
Yeah.
it.
And that's one thing, like, I just want every single soul out there to experience. you know, like how powerful of a creator you really are. Like when you learn to just dive into who you are and feeling like certain emotions, you know, and it's a practice. It really is. Like we get so used to like feeling shame and guilt and anger and like all these things. And, you know, realizing that they're programs, you know, I think that's what, you know, a lot of religion, when you look at it, like a lot of religions teach us to feel like shame about a lot of things, a lot of guilt, or, you know, the government, if you don't do certain things, or, you know, school, or, you know, there's just so many different systems out there that are teaching us you do this, 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 and this, or you should feel guilty, or you should feel shameful, or you should, you know, and it just teaches us to like feel bad about ourselves. And so when you really take control of your own like emotions and who you are, is when you can really start to feel those feelings of like deep love and deep joy every day, deep gratitude. And like there's not a day that I wake up and I'm not like insanely grateful for the life I live, you know, and I let myself just really sit in that every day. I just sit there like when I meditate in the morning, I like to use copy. And so I do it, I journal, and then I just sit there and I let myself just fully feel like gratitude and like deep love and appreciation and, you know, all those things. And I think that's kind of what abundance is, just feeling those feelings all the time because they're always accessible to us. And so I really learned that, you know, you can manifest like money or objects or things, but real abundance is a lot more than that. You know, it's the emotions, it's the experiences, it's the things that you see every day. It's
The beauty, the
so
joy, the
much.
humor, the
Mm-hmm.
connection.
Yeah.
I've recently been introduced to the idea that alignment is the number one top priority that we ought to have first thing in the morning. You know, gratitude, appreciation, and then it brings us into alignment with what we truly are as an extension of source energy, as source energy itself, you know, that is animating this human experience in an
Mm-hmm.
individual egoic state that we're
Yep.
grounded in. But when
Yep.
we realign, we remember what we truly are while we're living this life as the who we identify as, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just so
Yep.
fascinating. Like, what are some other practices? I mean, you've shared so much already on Hape. I also use and love Hape. Every time I
Mm-hmm.
meditate, I do Wim Hof breathing, cold
Mm-hmm.
plunges.
Yep.
There's just so much that people can do. And in fact, David R. Hawkins wrote a big, thick book on letting go. And
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend everyone get that book. And Krish is actually referring to one of his graphs or charts. It's called the Map of Consciousness. And you can Google it and see the vibratory experience of a human from basically 0 or 10, way down there at like total hopelessness,
Mm-hmm.
all the way to 1,000, where it's like Buddha light or Christ consciousness, enlightenment, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between. And you were referring to that, you said vibrated at like 125 hertz or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you go over with us all the rest of them and how we can climb that ladder of map of consciousness to the top and remain there
Yeah.
fully?
Yeah. So if you look at the chart, um, you know, it shows all of the emotions, but then you'll get to gauge where you are at the most and what kind of frequency you are putting out. You know, and so if I would have looked at this like 5, 6, 7 years ago, mine would have been pretty dang low, you know? And so I think it's always understanding where you are at and then realizing you always have to take the next step. You can't be like down here and be like, okay, I'm just gonna jump right to the top, you know, like everyone has the process. And so when you realize, okay, I'm right here, what's the one above me? Okay, maybe it's just neutrality. Maybe it's just not being angry. Maybe it's just like being in the middle about things, and not being so swayed. Maybe it's um starting to feel a little more courageous, to take more steps, to learn new things, to maybe disappoint some people and be okay with it, and so just looking at the chart, you'll kind of see all these emotions. And every day when I do my hape, that's one thing that I really look at is, a lot of my intentions are around, please help me to stay at the highest frequency and vibration I possibly can today. And then really looking at what emotions are at the top. It's like love, gratitude, enlightenment, like, and you'll know, like, once you hit a level that you are fully feeling it, because it's not just like I'm going to kind of feel it. Like, it's a full body, like, experience.
It is almost an out of body experience, it's
It
like,
is.
wow.
It is. It's big. And so
What's
when
the
you
importance of remaining in alignment at that high vibrating frequency?
it's just going, I think everyone kind of has like a a space where your body is more comfortable being, and so when you align with yourself, you come back to that space where you're comfortable and where is in alignment with, like, whatever you believe in. So with me, I'm always like, okay, I want to align so fully today with my higher self, with God, with, all of source energy. And so it's really looking at, okay, what emotions, what frequencies is that thing up there putting out? I'm going to do my best to make sure I'm in alignment with that I'm feeling those same things, that I'm doing those same actions, that I'm saying those same words that I feel like that would be in, you know?
So when you
And
vibrate at that high level
mhm,
consistently or more consistently, that's when I believe everything manifests in the
it does.
matrix. And you're
Yeah.
proof of that, in my opinion. I've watched your journey and I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God, look at this. And Carla's like, isn't it awesome? She loves it. We just love watching your journey. We're learning and inspired by it. So,
Oh, thank you so much. And I mean, that's the thing, is like, because it says like the level of hertz frequency next to it. And so when things are moving at a higher frequency, that is when things can manifest quickly. Because if you're trying to manifest clear down at the bottom at like desire, things are moving slow. Like those aren't going as fast. Like, it's gonna get, the energy's gonna get stuck a lot. Like, it's not gonna like flow. But when you're up here at a high vibration rate, and there's even like things come in really fast. Like, you can manifest, like, there's some things that I'll put out there and it shows up like that day. Like, we're very powerful beings. And once we really understand that and feel the energy of that, that's when things can start happening. And like I always say every day, like, I live a very magical life. And I believe that everything is always, always, always working out for me. And there's like a joke in our house, that I'm everyone's live-in shaman because it's just like what I love to like dive into, like, the emotions, the beliefs, so like where we're at energetically, and like helping you like heal those things and really come into alignment with who you want to be,
mm,
you know?
I love
And
that.
so,
There's an idea of pronoia, which is the opposite of paranoia. Paranoia, we know that everything's out to get me, everyone's against me, the whole world is conspiring against me. But pronoia, which I've shifted into over the past few years, in every way I possibly could, states that the universe and everything was designed from the beginning to conspire in our behalf.
mhm.
And
Yep.
thinking from that place, um, brings me up on that map of consciousness every time. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people can see this. I'm going to kind of bring it in a little bit. That's the map of consciousness we're talking about.
Hmm.
And just like with a staircase or a ladder, you can't jump from step one to step 1,000. It's
Yep.
you're going to get hurt. It's not going to happen. Let's get real, but simple, slow shifts in frequency and in the way that we vibrate is possible. And it doesn't take long to shift from shame to grief to anger to courage to acceptance to love and then on up,
Mm-hmm.
just like
Yep.
you were saying.
Yep.
What are some ways that you've found to when you are aware that you're vibrating a little more low than you would like to realign and vibrate higher?
One thing that I've really done is I've really learned a lot about the ego and what it is, how it works. It likes to use comparison. It likes to use like you're better or worse. It likes to use the terms always or never. It likes to just make things very extreme. So I really got to a space where I could recognize and ask myself when I was like in a behavior, ask myself, am I in my ego right now or am I in my soul? You know? And that was one thing that always brought me back because I was like, okay, I'm in my ego right now. How do I come back? And so a lot of times I would sit down, sometimes I would do hot base, sometimes I would just start journaling, sometimes I would just sit down. And one thing that I've found more than anything is humming,
Hmm.
because everything is off of a frequency and off of sound. We have a whole set of sound bowls here in the house that I like to play a lot, like based off of which chakra you're kind of struggling in. But if you sit and just hum, it helps bring you back to your state of like soul level and in your heart. And so it's actually something that we do in our whole house. Like we have 11 people in our house. And so every night after dinner, we sit down and for 5 minutes, we just sit together and we just hum for 5 minutes. And it like brings us all into our hearts. It helps us be like in that vibratory state of like your own being, you know? And so that is one tool that we use a lot. And so a lot of times we're all just like, someone's struggling, we're like, hum it out, you know, and just kind of like, um, yeah.
Yes.
So we just sit there.
Oh, I do
Mm,
feel better.
mm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so it's like, just because everything is based off of like sound and energy and frequency. And so that's one thing that we use a lot. And, I think one of the biggest things that anyone just barely starting out with their journey is, is to always start with the body. So start with your physical health because, there's no use figuring out what's going wrong inside the ship if your actual ship has holes in it sinking. Like you are in this vessel right now. And so getting that to a state of like homeostasis, like if you have a ton of inflammation, you're not going to be able to be accessing higher levels of consciousness. If you are like eating a lot of like processed foods or dyes or sugars or like, that just all these certain things that really like are essentially kind of a poison to us, it's going to be very hard to access these higher levels of frequency and vibration. When me and my husband would go out every once in a while, like we'd go have a drink or we'd, have some alcohol every once in a while. And when I started really diving into my spirit, I started to figure out that like when I would have even a glass of wine, I would recognize that it was a lot harder to access like my spiritual self,
Same
you know? It was so much harder. And I was like, well, I'm not doing this out of like like trying to hurt myself or anything, but recognizing like this is how it feels was like, okay, then I don't want to do that anymore. It's like essentially a poison that pulls me because I think when you have certain ingredients and certain foods, then it brings you out of that level of high frequency, high vibration, and it just brings you like down, and so really focusing on taking care of your body, making sure you're getting exercise and eating right and just doing things that way, I think is the best way to start. If it all feels like way too much, then always just start with your body, start taking care of your health, and then you can start moving up into like your mind, your thoughts, the way you think, and then you can go even further into your beliefs and things like that.
Start with the body. That's really sound
Yep.
advice. That's how my journey has gone as well. It started with the body, watching the documentary Fed Up about
Mm-hmm.
sugars and
Yeah.
getting off sugars, realizing that all of that depression, anxiety, that bipolar bull crap, all those symptoms completely left when I cut
Yeah.
sugar and carbohydrates out of my diet. I was
Yeah.
mind blown. And it
Yep.
was a huge advancement in wellness in my own journey.
Yeah.
And man, it is so difficult to get off of that. I shared this with someone else earlier too, but one thing that I did learn is amino acids. For some reason, when you're trying to get off sugar or certain pills, um, you don't experience withdrawals quite as severely.
Mm-hmm.
I learned it through a company. I take something called Q96 and Power Plus. I have ever
Mm-hmm.
since 2014 because I got off all the big pharma medications and went
Yeah.
on to something natural. And it's all natural vitamins and minerals. And I love the product because I get from it what I no, could no longer get from the foods that we have available to us today. It's all
Yeah.
different than it was 100 years ago.
Right.
But that stuff helps with inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
My mind fog completely cleared up, and I was able to think well again. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about, you can't think when your brain is swelling against your skull and it's
Yeah.
inflamed.
Yeah.
Or, well, you can think, but it's usually with rage and frustration and grief and anger.
Mm-hmm.
Vibrating low, creating low. But when
Yep.
you up level the vibrations through wellness and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, mindfulness, self awareness, these are the tools that empower us to vibrate at a higher frequency more often. And
Mm-hmm.
then we literally are that joy. We are love. We are acceptance.
Yep.
We are appreciation. And
Yep.
that's where the bubble pops and the manifestations appear almost
Yep.
magical.
Mm-hmm.
And I
100.
mean, we're both living proof, period.
Yep.
You're living an amazing life. I feel like I am too.
Yeah.
And while my life may not look like some to much that are in the whole comparison game, this life that I'm living now is nothing but abundance compared to where
Right.
I was
Right.
years ago. I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful to be where I'm at. And I know that as I continue to vibrate higher, like your teaching is so important, that
Mm-hmm.
great things are coming still.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, with alignment and the flow through the chakra systems, when energy gets blocked in a chakra system, can you sort of describe what happens to the physical body, how it manifests, and then how we can literally unblock the chakra system to allow the energy that we are to flow through better?
Mhm. Yeah. And so the first thing would be to see if you're having physical symptoms, recognizing where they're at, because they're most likely going to be in the chakra system that is blocked. And so, say you have a lot of like stomach pains, you're probably dealing in like your solar because it's right here, or your sacral or your solar plexus right here. A lot of times digestive issues are like right in there. Or if you're having a lot of like neck pain or things like that, you might be having a block in your throat chakra. You have a lot of trouble speaking your truth and things like that. Or if you're getting a lot of migraines, there's just like, it's most likely going to show up in that system. And so if it's consistently something that you're feeling and recognizing, knowing like, okay, I probably am having an energetic block, and that's why it's affecting me physically. And so there's, if you look at those, there's a lot of books, a lot of like information on each of the chakra systems because there's a lot of them, but a lot of them hold specific, beliefs in them. And so say you're struggling with your root chakra, the one at the very bottom. That one is where you hold like your safety, your, groundedness, your security here, like on the earth and like with the people around you. Like if you don't, if you have a lot of issues in those areas, it can start to affect you physically right there, And so for an example, you could um, start asking yourself, like, what in my life is causing me to feel the feelings of not being safe, not being accepted how I am, like things like that, and start really starting to, fix those things, starting to like, okay, what can I do to help myself feel more calm? Okay, I'm gonna shift this relationship with this person. Okay, I'm going to sit and start grounding myself more. I'm gonna sit with the earth more and kind of like feel it beneath me and how like grounded and safe I am. Like there's just certain things that you can do like that to really help move those energies there. And when you start, a lot of times when I meditate, I have a whole book about chakras to really like learn because I think it's such a complex thing that you kind of have to learn about it. But a lot of times I'll start at my root chakra and I'll like physically like watch the energy wheel spin and like I'll feel within me like if it is spinning well, if not. And then I'll move up and then I'll move up and move up and move up until I get all the way up to my crown. And then I can see them all just like spinning fluidly, because I think, there's so many great resources out there, teachers and coaches and books and things, but the greatest teacher that you can ever have is yourself. When you can sit with yourself, when you can meditate and connect with God, when you can like ask answers and you can put things out there and sit with yourself enough to receive the answers, that's where you're going to learn more than anything, and that's where I think that I've really learned the most information. I feel like I'm very, like, I learn a lot from outside sources, but my favorite place is within because we are like connected to everything. And when you really build that connection with your intuition, and so it's very easy to recognize like when something feels off or something feels right, or okay, I need to do this thing. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me or anyone around me, but I know I got to go for it. Um, then I think that's when your life can shift really, really quickly.
You guys have so much courage. I mean, it is really difficult to get up from a comfortable spot that you've known your whole life around comfortable people in a comfortable place that you've really grounded yourself in for years and years till it's a habituated, automated thing you do. And all of a sudden, within a year's time, decide, oh, let's move across the US and start a whole new life and see how that goes.
Yeah,
What the hell were you guys thinking, man?
that's
That's
what everyone.
scary, you know?
I mean, and
What gave you the courage though?
we were in the middle of building a home. There was just so many things. My husband had a great job, and so we were like, we don't know if he's going to be able to find another job like that out there, like, and a lot of people come to me and they tell me all their excuses, like, oh, I want to move, but this, and I'm like, I know all the excuses because I had them. Like I felt all those things too, but I feel like that's when I really started to listen to my intuition,
What
and it
gave you the
just kept
courage to do that, regardless of the excuses?
really just the feeling that I had within. It was just like this calling to me. They kept like pushing me, like you need to get out. You need to move out of this place. You need to, and almost this fear that if I didn't listen, how small my life would be.
Mm. Hmm.
You know, I just looked at everyone around me and I was like, I know that you guys have great lives and you're probably happy, but I feel like I want to experience life a little more, like have a little more experience, like meeting new people and going to new places and knowing what life is outside of one little area. I just had this like combination of this fear and this calling. And so I was like, okay, we got to do it.
So fascinating. So many people do it, and you know, things will always work out. That's just how life goes.
Hmm.
But trying to remember that in your most fearful states is kind of difficult. So I imagine by this time you were already learning things like meditation and listening to intuition, and you were feeling
Hmm.
better, thinking better because of less inflammation. You had
Yeah,
done a bodybuilding contest by then, you said,
I
and
did.
training
Hmm.
others.
Yeah,
So the confidence that must have come from that practice, competence must have really helped push you along in that
yeah,
vision. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. I get scared thinking about it. And then I'm like, no, totally worth it. Obviously. I mean, look how far you guys have come. Look at the life you're living now.
Right,
That's
right.
so exciting.
Thanks.
There's a idea like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, all these doctors and scientists have done studies for years now about the inner chemistry of the body and how
Hmm.
one thought you think literally causes the body in the brain and in a bundle of nerves near the heart to inject a chemical cocktail filled with anywhere from 4 to 1,400 like chemicals and hormones that within 2 pumps of the heart have now traveled over 80,000 miles through the
Hmm.
vascular system and infused into the body, right? So you
Hmm.
think a thought, and in accordance to that thought comes this inner chemical cocktail within 2 pumps of the heart. It's everywhere. And now they know, and they can measure with magnetic machinery and all these photographs. I mean, they take pictures of the correlating energy that correlates with those thoughts and chemicals and a
Hmm.
feeling state out 15, 20 feet.
Yeah.
So magnetically, we're pulsating at all times in accordance to how we think. And
Hmm.
so it keeps coming back to what we think is so important. It's who we become, it's how we interact, it's how we react or don't react at all, it's how
Yep.
we vibrate on a frequency level. So upgrading thinking and beliefs and perceptions, being able to see things more beautifully, consistently, and progressively daily, all of
Hmm.
these things become so important once someone realizes how magnetically we're attracting and becoming unattractive to
Hmm.
situations, things, people, places. I mean, it's just such a good bit of information to have and to start your
Yeah.
day with.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the best morning routines that you would suggest for people who are just starting out on their personal development journey?
So I'll just describe what mine is right now that I do every day because I feel like it's pretty doable for almost everyone. So I get up and I drink 32 ounces of hydrogen water first thing. And
Is that
then
the
I go,
bubbly water that comes up?
uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are cool. We
And
just got one.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty awesome what it can do and help you do like for your cells and everything. And so I drink that and then I go and I exercise for about 45 minutes um every morning and then I go upstairs, I go get my kids ready for school, take them, and then I come home and I just sit and I meditate. I journal. A lot of my meditation is because I don't like to just sit with my eyes closed a lot. A lot of times for me, the most emotions flow out when I'm writing. And so I think finding what practice helps you the most is key. And so I just pull out a notebook and I just write. I write like what I'm grateful for. I write what I'm manifesting. If I feel like there's something blocked, if I feel like there's something I'm really struggling with, I write it out because I feel like it's not healthy to keep like thoughts and feelings stored in the body. And so if I'm really having something that I'm like struggling with or not able to work through, I write it out. I'm like, I'm struggling with this. I feel this. I don't feel like safe with this, or, and I write it out. And then a lot of times when I'm writing out, I see how not big of a deal it is. Then it's like, it kind of like lessens its hold on me. And so I just write and write and write. I do Hoppe and I just kind of connect with like myself and God every morning. First thing, it doesn't matter if we're like away on vacation. It doesn't matter if we're home, weekend, weekday. Like I just make sure it gets done every morning. And so that I can like be the best self for not only me, but for everyone around me, you know? And so like, and one thing that I've really noticed that, if you're a parent that you have like little kids, I didn't realize how much like me healing myself and me like going on the journey of finding who I am would like impact them so much, And so I'm so proud that they get to watch that and like learn to take care of themselves as while they're little so they don't have to try to figure it out as adults. And so right now when their brains are just so small and they're just like learning everything, like they know, okay, wake up, we're going to go drink some hydrogen water, we're going to eat a healthy breakfast, we're going to move our bodies, we're going to, and then every morning on our way to school, and I don't even start it, a lot of times my kids will start it, we do affirmations the whole way there. And so, and then they just start yelling them out, which ones they feel like they need. I'm like, hey, which ones do you feel like you need today? And so like, I am brave. I am strong. I am healthy. I am protected. I am a bright light. The world needs me here. The world is better because I am here. I am unique. I am, like, and they just like spill them out. And a lot of times I'm just like driving and I'm listening to them. I'm like, man, if my little self could have like thought these things, life would have been a heck of a lot easier back then. But it's just really cool to watch how, like, once you heal you, it affects everyone around you. So,
You can't pour from an empty cup, right? I mean,
yeah.
always provide an overflow, and that starts
Yep.
first thing in the morning. And it is a practice. I've noticed that if I stray away from a morning routine, I don't have the same amount of momentum and the correct
Hmm.
trajectory that I want to align with,
Yeah.
and I just kind of fizzles out. So I've
Yep.
noticed, like, habitually, automatically, I just want a morning routine that I love, that gets me
Hmm.
up and going, gets me happy to be out of bed at 3:30 in the morning to go to work. I want to be happy. Life's
Yeah.
too short not to be.
Exactly.
And I love that you shared that about the drive to school,
Hmm.
because I think so many parents become so incredibly overwhelmed with life and raising kids and stress from the bills and work and this person treating me like that. And they're so hyper focused on all the bullshit that doesn't even matter.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's so easy to do. We all do it. But then
Yeah.
to have a practice like that helps you to realign with
Hmm.
with source and
Yep.
to be that again, it's
Yep.
just so useful. I
Yep.
know, I hope that my daughter and daughter-in-law get to hear this. They are incredible mothers. They do
Hmm.
some similar things to what you do.
Yeah.
And I know they just love this content and love to meet you, love your ideas. Um, Now, in closing, as we wrap it up, is there anything else that you'd like to share about your purpose now in life going forward?
Um, I think before I couldn't find it. I think it was always something that I had to go out and look for. And now that I've like met with myself and I'm like focused on feeling all these emotions and healing and shifting my frequency, I see that a lot of that work is my purpose because I think we're all here as a collective to raise our consciousness and raise our frequency and shift this world and like make it a light place to be, a healed place to be. And so once even just one person does that and puts off that frequency into the world, then that is just like a ripple effect that affects everything, And so I've really noticed that it's not exactly, okay, I need to go out here and do this, this, and this, and this. It's really an inside job. And so when you really focus on you and yourself, then that's when you really find your purpose and your sense of why you're here, you know?
I love that. I align with that message for sure. There's a little quote that I have that I read every time before I meditate. It says, everything changes when you start to emit your own frequency rather than absorbing the frequencies around you. when you start imprinting your intent onto the universe rather than receiving an imprint from existence.
Hmm.
I agree. Everything is an inside job first.
Yep.
It's like we're shuttled down to these human bodies for a human experience. We're in these suits that we wear to navigate through life and learn and experience all these things. It's almost like we're a source of constant, infinite uploads of information to source in
Yep.
our own individuated experiences.
Yeah.
And we forget what we are. And then we get to sort of start to relearn that through pain
Yeah.
and suffering and experience and
Yep.
love and hope and light and others,
Yep.
especially. I just want to recognize you for being an ambassador of hope and light. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was so great to chat with you.
Likewise, it's so fun for me and Carla to go online on Instagram and see your stories and remember the important things and see what doing the important things in life can bring.
Hmm.
It's so inspiring. How can
Thank you.
people reach out to you or connect with you or follow you? What are the best places?
The best place would probably be on Instagram. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but my Instagram handle is The Aligned Souls. And for people that really want to dive in, but they don't feel like they know exactly how, I do one-on-one coaching. A lot of people can get a lot of help just by watching content. Like I've had so many people reach out to me talking about how my content has helped them, and that's all I think any of us can do. And so that's kind of the best place. Find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Much love to you and the family, and I hope that we get to meet again sometime soon and hang out and reconnect.
Same. That would be great.